All right, welcome back to another episode of the Top of Our Cricket Podcast. I am your host, Kevin Henry, and with me, I got my Sam tonight. Walter is otherwise taken up, so the show must go on. So, Sam,
The emergency show must go on.
the emergency show. This is
That's
by the way, this is an emergency Top of Our Cricket Podcast to discuss the emergency that took place today. This groundbreaking emergency meeting that required 2 days of discussions, locked away in a room in the Hyatt in Port of Spain, right? So we spoke about this briefly when once the 27 happened and Kishore Shallow sent out the SOS. Brian, Sir Clive, I need you. I don't know who else you would have asked, but those two, you know, and it has taken up what about 3 weeks or so for this for,
yeah.
for this meeting to happen, you know. But what were your thoughts as you watched the show today, or you watched the briefing, the presser that they had?
Well, when I picked up that there was going to be a press conference after this 2-day meeting would have concluded, my initial reaction was, okay, this is a good thing. Because, from time to time, I often say, Cricket West Indies drops the ball when it comes to engaging in proper PR, proper public relations.
Yes.
Right?
So you did that today.
So my initial reaction was, this is a good thing. But once the thing started, it occurred to me that, no, we did not need to have a press conference. In fact, my conclusion based on that damp squib, which happened today, was essentially that, look, when Cricket West Indies is supposed to hold a press conference, they don't hold a press conference. They did not need to have a press conference today. What they needed to have done was to simply issue a press release, and I'm assuming one will come at some point, issue a press release giving us some basic information on this 2-day meeting. That's it. I don't know whose idea it was to have this damp script today. And I'll tell you what, one of the most glaring things to me, I don't know if anyone has picked up on this or said anything about it. Now, the man who called this emergency meeting put out the bat signal, help, help, calling Batman and Robin and all of them, come help. He was not at the head table. Dr. Shallow was not at the head table.
Glaring.
That was a PR mess up. It's like, if you can't have the man who called the meeting at the press conference, then why have the press conference? You see here again, Kevin, we are not doing basic things right. You don't need ChatGPT and Claude AI to tell you to do these basic things. Right? So here again, most of the people on the panel looked uncomfortable too. But one might say, Sam, I'm seeing what I want to see. So, okay, fine. But yeah, today did not need to happen, Kevin. All we needed was a press release that, look, the legends came through. This was the case. We had a meeting for 2 days, what have you, and so on.
So,
but I'll let you. I have some more to say, but I'll let you jump in.
So apparently, Cricket West Indies still need to sit and talk about what was talked about today, based on what was said at the meeting today.
Yeah.
Which is another damn squib. Why hold the presser before you actually sit down and say, well, look, this is how we are actually going to move. Why hold the presser? You understand? Here's the other thing that's baffling to me. Is the Cricket West Indies offices not sufficient enough to hold one of these? We're complaining about money. I'm quite sure, unless someone wants to tell me we didn't pay a dime to utilize whatever space we utilized in Trinidad. Isn't Cricket West Indies offices sufficient enough? How are we complaining about money, but then we're doing this? Right? We don't have money. We don't have money. We ain't got a proper bowling machine. The bowling machine only got 1 foot. But we wasted money, right? So it's a matter of fiscal irresponsibility.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what I would say, Kevin. Granted, they're in Trinidad. If it were the case that they were in Antigua and Barbuda, we know they would have been at CWI offices, right? But your point is still valid. And here is what I would say too. One of the things which should have been said today, and hopefully it will be said in a subsequent press release, is what did this exercise cost Cricket West Indies? Right? Were the facilities given for free, given that the team is already staying there? Did the management say, okay, we'll afford you to have this space? It could have been something like that, you know? So I'm going to wait and hopefully they can tell us, but you are right. There needs to be accountability. That's what I would say first and foremost. But here's the thing. When this SOS was put out, the question I asked you, if you recall, was if we had made 57 or we had made 100
or 157.
There you go. If the answer is that yes, Dr. Shallow would still have called for the legends to come in, then okay, this meeting is justified and it's not about the 27. And Brian Lara did touch on that thing about, okay, you know, this is bigger than the 27 or what have you, right? And Chris Daring too mentioned that when after he left Sabina, remember that? And he went to that meeting in Singapore. And the first person he put up with in the airport that he knew, the guy from Australia, who said to him, and I'm glad Chris Daring made that point, that Australia could have been the country, or the cricket team rather, with the lowest score in Test cricket, because they were 21 for 9 against what, South Africa, yes?
Yes.
Good, right? And one can say, well, yes, South Africa has a world-class bowling attack, just like the Australians, right? Anyway, so that out the way. But here's my thing. Given that the SOS was put out, I have no problem at this time with this 2-day meeting being held. I don't have a problem with them sitting in a room and putting everything out there. And apparently, Darren Sammy did a good job because Clive Lloyd was impressed by him. And apparently the rest of his coaching staff or what have you. Granted, we could say, oh, he's being polite or what have you, but the thing is, Clive Lloyd did not need to have said anything about whether he was impressed or not with Sammy. That he said it says to me that, yeah, there's something there, right? So for me, it's like, whenever we finish a tour, there needs to be a debriefing.
Yeah.
I would imagine so. I don't know that it actually happens, but that is something that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And so it is within this context, it is within that context of, here it is, we had a hard tour, a hard season, because we can't exclude the Pakistan side of things so far. Right?
And the 5-0 loss in the T20s against Australia.
There you go. There you go. So the whole Australian series. So to have to meet and to talk about what has just happened, when things are fresh, when it is raw, I don't have a problem with that. The manner in which it was done, issue there. But them meeting and talking about these things, I don't have a problem. Press conference, like I said though, damp squib.
Yeah.
Did not need to happen.
Here are my thoughts on this, right? Nothing that was said today, we don't already know that we need to do.
Yeah. Yep.
That is what annoyed me.
Yep.
Right? Everything that I sat and I listened to, we already knew that we needed to do it. Some of these things were covered by Brian Lara and the South African coach that did that. I don't want to call it a commission of inquiry, but they had a similar emergency meeting a few years ago when we didn't qualify for I think it was a T20 World Cup. I think it was one of the World Cups we didn't qualify for.
Or was it the ODI?
Or it might have been the ODI because that was a big
Right.
thing. That was a really big thing. I think that is what
yeah, man.
yeah. But because that's when Lara said, Shimron Hetmeyer needs to be involved, this, that, and the third needs to happen. The point is, we're wasting time. We already know what we have to do. They spoke of pitches, they spoke of the structure. All these things we already know needs to be fixed, right? I will touch on this. So one of the journalists that were there asked the question about coaching. And apparently there's one of the old timers that was charged with remarking coaching papers and found there's a lack. There's a serious lack. What's one of the things that I've been saying for the longest while with regards to coaching in the West Indies? Who's responsible? I continue to say the coaches
territorials
at the territorial level, the coaches at the age group level are the ones who are failing West Indies cricket. It is not the coach who represents us at the international level.
Of course, yeah.
All these players are products of those coaches.
Yeah.
Now, granted, these players have a major role to play in their own personal development. Because if you know what ails you, it's kind of easier to fix it, right? Personally. Yes, you might need to go to someone to look and see. But in this age, this information age of all kinds of technology that we are all privy to, you can help yourself. So it's a twofold thing. The coaches and the players. But I come back to, I don't think this emergency meeting was necessary. Right? Now, like you said, a debrief, yes. You sit down with the director of cricket and whoever else is responsible, and you have a conversation about where we went wrong, where we went right, what we could have done better, what we could have done differently, right? Clive Lloyd has been saying what he said for ages. Brian Lara has been saying what he said for ages. He even touched on, because one of the journalists asked about, what's really ailing West Indies cricket. And he spoke about from the 50s to the 70s to modern day, right? What was the motivation? And I thought he was spot on with that. But what really caught my interest today were things that weren't said. The demeanor of Sir Clive Lloyd and the Prince of Port of Spain, Brian Lara. Once Clive Lloyd spoke, matter of fact, before he spoke, he looked like he didn't want to be there. Once he spoke, he did this number and turned his body in this fashion. When Brian Lara said what he had to say, Brian Lara just calmly just pulled back, like, I'm here, but I don't want to be here. And I just tell people, a lot of times I just listen to what is not said. That's where a lot of the interesting things lie, in what is not said. And what wasn't said today was done in body language, demeanor. That tells, I could be wrong, but based on how it looked, the optics of it was pretty bad. You mentioned Kishore Shallow not being at that table. That was the first person I was looking for. You called this meeting. You showed up on the back end, and Chris Derrin smartly called you out, which I thought was the right thing to do.
Yeah, to say that he's there, that he's not, yeah.
Mr. Man, if you call this meeting, you're supposed to just sit down here with me, because we facing up to it. You are the head of this operation. You don't get to sneak in the back door and come and sit in quietly like you overseeing things. No, you get to sit there and face the fight, even if you don't have much to say. That was one of the most disappointing things. And listen, Dr. Shallow has been trying his darndest. Him and Chris Derrin, Miles Bascom, I have to say they've been trying their darndest. But he is starting to make some really glaring mistakes that are making people question his leadership even more. That today is basic as it comes. It's as basic as it comes. You called it, you are there, you are present. From start to finish, and then you can go on about your business. I want to touch now on a couple of journalists. And I don't think they understand how the global cricket dynamics work. Two of the journalists I remember asked some questions about the white ball players being used, and there's not a requirement for these players to play or are made to play red ball cricket. And I'm thinking to myself, in today's cricket world, had he been a Shimron Hetmeyer, Sherfin Rutherford, Brandon King, Ruston Chase, Shea Hope, had he been one of these players in their shoes, your earning capability is about this long. Would he choose West Indies first-class cricket over the millions that are being paid in whatever league, whether it be the IPL, the NatWest Blast in England, or the PSL? Would he make the choice of, nah, I ain't want the money, I gonna stay and play West Indies first-class cricket? I find it to be very disrespectful to ask a man not to secure his financial future, especially given the fact that West Indies are one of the poorest paid teams around the world. I don't know what are your thoughts on it?
The last time we met, I made it clear that I've come to the position, contrary to what many others believe or say, that franchise cricket has mashed up West Indies cricket. For me, it's more nuanced than that, and I take the point you raised the last time, right? But for me, we've got to be careful how we couch the language. Franchise cricket has not mashed up West Indies cricket, right? It has obviously affected our cricket, in terms of, for one, the availability of cricketers, the amount of red ball cricket our cricketers are able to play, right? Because we know, as was said, one of the journalists, I think, mentioned it, that, the red ball moves around way than the white ball, right? And so in terms of, you deepening your craft as a batter, if you're playing a lot of white ball cricket, you're going to lose some of the technical things, right? Or capacity to play
Yes.
red ball cricket. But I will say, however, I don't see it as a big problem because look, for Shimron Hetmeyer, for any West Indies player to get to the point where the bosses at the IPL look at them and say, yeah, we want you. They must have done well at our regional cricket in the earlies. So it comes back to the point you constantly make about proper coaching at the territorial level. So once you come in, and I've said time and time again, it is harder to build a batter than to build a fast bowler. You can jump in and start fast bowling at 19 years old.
Yep.
For you to be a proper batter, you need to be doing that before 10.
Exactly.
Right? Brian Lara was doing that before 10. Temba Bavuma before 10.
Yep.
Good? And you hone those skills. You go to your finishing school, whether it's Fatima College or St. Joseph's or Campion, or you do like Chandapal and the whole village bowl at you. You have to hone your craft. So this thing about, people's white ball and this, I don't buy it. It affects our cricket, but it hasn't mashed up our cricket. We need to stop that nonsense. Stop blaming franchise cricket, in my view.
Franchise cricket, to me, is not the problem. To me, the problem is the kind of cricket we are raising our young players on.
There you go.
Right?
There you go.
I can open the newspaper or I can go on Facebook on any given day.
Right.
And there's a T10 tournament or a T20 tournament.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's reference the West Indies on a 19 tournament that just took place. Traditionally, historically, the West Indies under 19 tournament has been a 3-day red ball tournament.
Right.
Why are our boys being fed a diet of 1-day cricket?
Right.
But 2 more months from now, you're going to ask them to play first-class cricket.
Right.
You're going to ask them to play test cricket. But you didn't give them the platform to hone their craft. All the sponsors in Guyana and in Trinidad and all over, from the time you miss them, T20 tournament, T10 tournament, T20. So how are you expecting? What we just say, well, rain careful, dew careful?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You expect
them
to
problems
play T10 and T20 cricket.
Yeah.
But then tell you to come and work wonders against Mitchell Stark and Josh Hazelwood.
Right. Let me tell you something, Kev.
I don't necessarily believe that T20 cricket. I think it has a little of a role, because what happens is when our players go to the IPL, the roles that they play with the West Indies, they don't play those roles in the IPL. And you have a bunch of players batting a handful of balls. Right? So that's where our players are being affected. But in terms of the big picture, the way we are raising our players is where the problem truly lies.
Yeah. Oh, well, listen, I think someone mentioned it on the panel, and I smiled. Balance, this thing about balance. It might have been Clive Lloyd, I'm not sure, about the need for balance. So even as to be a good batsman, right? Or good batter, sorry. Balance is important, right? You don't want your head falling over and all. Good. But when it comes now to cricket tournaments, I agree with you. But at the same time, I also understand that the short form of the game brings some excitement. So if in a community, people don't have the time, the community don't have the time to say, oh, watch a 3-day match or what have you. It's going to be hard, right? But to keep the little excitement, you're going to say, okay, on Friday night, we're going to have a little day. But what you have to do to support your point is to make it clear. Red ball cricket is where you develop your skills. But the little fete, you have your little fete, you have your little music, you bring on it, have that. But you have to make it clear to players that here what? is blood, sweat, and tears, you know. It's
Exactly.
blood, sweat, and tears to hone your skills. There are no shortcuts to it.
Here's my thing. If the private sector want to have their little T20 competition and the T10, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But the Guyana Cricket Board,
Mm.
TTCB,
Mm.
Barbados Cricket Association, JCA, Windward Islands, all of them, you must ensure that you have your foundation tournaments in terms of your red ball tournaments, your two-day competition on the 15 and on the 17 level, your 3-day competition on the 19 level, your 3-day competition at the well, in Guyana, in terms of Guyana, the inter-county level, the parish level in Jamaica, the first division in Trinidad and Barbados. You need to have those, right? Somebody asked the question, I think someone wrote in and asked the question of uniformity across the territories in terms of youth cricket, right? And then the best players matriculating upward, right? Into the, whether you play for the West Indies on a 15 team, on a 17, on a 19 team, 18, whatever, right? And Miles Bascom spoke of a lack of control and stuff like that. And in my head, I'm thinking, so at what point you're going to engage CARICOM subcommittee on cricket and say, hey, look, guys, we need some uniformity, right? Here is where you guys can help in the development of the game. That is the part that you guys actually own, the schools. This is where you can do your part and say, well, we're going to have our school competitions, or 1-day and 2-day competitions. We're going to have it. This is that.
Well, Kevin, you see, the problem with the school thing, though, is this, you know, the support. That's why you see whenever this conversation about what's wrong with West Indies cricket comes up, I say to you, it comes down to people, it comes down to the community. You see? So I agree with you. I support you in terms of national sport policies in general. And as a subsection, you have a policy for cricket. And I am biased. I do agree. But for me, cricket is the ultimate sport for us in this region, you know.
It is.
I've been looking for years now. There's one article I read about 2 decades ago in The Economist. And The Economist is British. They have their bias. But them guys did a thorough analysis and came out with cricket as the most technically technical and I forget the other word they used, right? To describe cricket in terms of, you know, the length of time, how fast this, you know, 5.5 ounce ball is coming at you, sometimes at your head, right? And so from a technical perspective and from an endurance perspective, they regard it as this was the ultimate. This is like war. You see? So it's not by accident, you know, that you played for police in New Amsterdam, you know. Because when you look at the colonial era, right, you know, you want to keep your disciplined forces fit.
Yes.
Cricket was one of the things they did.
It was one of the things.
So when I think of it, it's like, come on, man. We need to have a policy on cricket. But at the same time now, how do you encourage parents to have their children play the game? When you and I were young, nobody need to tell us to play cricket, you know. Granted, my grandfather made me a bat since I was 5 or 6. But you see, every time it came around, like around March, April there, everybody playing cricket.
Yeah.
We watching cable and wireless on the TV, and then when they're off, we gone in the yard and we doing we thing, right? Who's Ambrose, who's Lara, who's be doing we thing. But here is what? We don't have that natural drive anymore.
Because there's competing interests, right?
Yeah. And so what it means now is that there needs to be a greater push from the authorities recognizing the importance of it. People ask me, just today my neighbor asked me, does Joshua like cricket? And I said, well, you know, somebody did ask me why I forced him to play cricket. And I said, well, he is forced to go to school. He's forced in the afternoon to step away, come outside, then leave the house, put down the iPad or what have you, go in the yard and play cricket.
Yeah.
Because for me, it is not simply about cricket.
No, it's not.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah.
But here's the other glaring thing to support all of this point. We had the legends there today. And the legends did look a bit uncomfortable. We could say maybe they were tired from the 2 days or what have you, right? But guess what? I was waiting to hear what the legends are willing to do, separate and aside from Cricket West Indies. Because I'll tell you what, Kevin, you see if a man like Clive Lloyd says to the guy in the government, I want to go travel the country, right?
And speak.
And meet people and speak. Yeah. He will get a turnout because there's still people who respect Clive Lloyd. Good? But here's the bigger catch. Suppose Clive Lloyd goes to Guyana, and I know, respect to President Ali, I think there's an academy that's supposed to come on stream at some point.
Clive Lloyd was supposed to be having something to do with it.
Good. Anyway, we're going to wait to see how that goes, right? But for now, thumbs up. Clive Lloyd goes down to Guyana and not only meets and talks to people, but Clive Lloyd selects a Clive Lloyd 11, right? Selects an 11, get his people together and say, the Clive Lloyd 11. Shivnarayan Chandapal, and you see I deliberately choose Shivnarayan Chandapal, right? You know why? All right. Shivnarayan Chandapal does the same thing. We have a Shiv 11. And even though it's a Shiv 11, the Shiv 11 is only going to have people of Indian descent. We will mix it up, obviously.
Of course.
Bring in some Amerindian batters too, right? Yeah. So we have a Lloyd 11, we have a Shiv 11. And ever so often, these 11s play. Right? These are going to be people who are not in the current mix-up for the Guyana team or something, right? And when they play, they are playing red ball cricket.
Yeah.
Throughout the year. So it could be, make it a big deal like, this man playing for the Clive Lloyd 11. And then from there, the thing moves up. And we do the very same thing throughout the region. And these teams not only carrying Clive Lloyd's name, but Clive Lloyd and Chandapal are integral to the process of these teams and the mentorship of these players in these teams. And you don't need Cricket West Indies to do this, Kevin.
No, you don't. You don't. My problem is too many people want to criticize, but they want to put their shoulders to the wheel. Yeah. You understand? Now, look, I was listening to Carlos Braithwaite, and kudos to Carlos.
Yeah, man, respect. Yeah, man.
I don't know if he won today. If he
no, it's tomorrow. Tomorrow is the elections.
Tomorrow's the election. Okay.
Yeah, the 12th.
Yeah. Kudos to Carlos. While we on this topic, Kyron Powell has signaled a couple of weeks ago his intentions of wanting to run for office.
Reward Islands.
Yeah. Carlos Braithwaite he hasn't wasted any time, and he said, "Look, I got to strike while the iron is hot. West Indies needs help. I got to start someplace." And you want these young players or former players starting to, because they've been in the broken system. They know what they would like to happen for it to be fixed. So there's need for a place for them. So I'm happy to see that they're not only trying to get into coaching, but these guys also want to get into running the day-to-day affairs of West Indies cricket. Right? So
I'll say one thing though, Carlos Braithwaite, I don't recall that he is, and I stand corrected here. I don't think he is too negative against the establishment in Barbados cricket, right? I don't recall him like
something that way.
yeah.
What he's saying is there is need for change.
Change, right? Good. And I'm telling you why I raised this. If you look at Chris Daring and you listen to him, he's the consummate professional, and he's not going to get into any fights or what have you.
Yeah.
Right? I think the thing with Kyron Powell is that he's got to dial back a little bit on the negative commentary on whoever is in charge. I know he's frustrated. I hear it. But guess what? Should he win, should he contest and win the presidency for the Leeward Islands Cricket Board or what have you, he is going to have to work with people, right, on the ground, who might very well be supportive of the current president or what have you. I know people can be very petty and silly or what have you. So I think as a region, we're too small, and as such, sometimes you got to dial back on the rhetoric, So, I mean, personally, there are times in the other place the place I work at, I could be very loud and things, but sometimes, I say, boy, just dial back.
Yeah.
It's your colleagues anyway, you have to work with them, however.
Today, I was reading an article that Vanessa Bash, the Trinidadian journalist, was writing, or she wrote, sorry, and it was published in one of the social media groups there.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the insularity, the never-ending insularity in West Indies cricket. Right? From the 50s all the way to where we are right now. If you were to look at it, there's always been, and we're going to finish on this topic because, we got to wrap it up. There's always been a problem, whether it was the white folks back in the day trying to exercise their stronghold on West Indies cricket, and then the emergence of Sir Frank Worrell and Clyde Walcott and all these guys, and then there was a rift within them, and then there was the Roy Gilchrist story, and you got to the 70s, and there's the whole Kerry Packer issue, and the board not really feeling it with the players.
Oh, and by the way, Clive Lloyd did not have very nice things to say about Garfield Sober's leadership, by the way.
Yeah.
People don't often mention that, Anyway.
There's also part of that article that I read that Sir Frank actually wanted to take a team to apartheid South Africa in 1959.
Oh, wow.
I'll find it and send it to you in the group chat. Yeah.
Interesting.
It didn't happen. Good thing it didn't. Right? It's a good thing it didn't. But as you come down, to the 90s, you got Brian Lara against the board, and the whole Heathrow, Nelson Mandela getting involved, Sir Ali Bakr getting involved. You got the numerous strikes in the 2000s and the 2010s. So while we are worried about bowling machines and coaches and pitches, when are we going to fix our problem with each other? You understand me? When are we going to fix our problem with each other? I think that is the biggest problem that we have in West Indies cricket. The scant respect that we have for each other. And if we want to move forward as a team, if we want to end up in the tier 1 of Test cricket, this cannot continue. Whether as fans, as players, as administrators, it cannot continue.
Yeah. A house divided.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, Sam,
Yeah,
the damn squid,
man.
let's hope somebody dry it out.
Yeah, man.
And it explodes.
Yeah, man.
And when it explodes, let's hope it explodes with a 15-year plan, a short-term, mid-term, long-range plan for West Indies cricket and the viability of it. Right? One love, my boy. We gonna talk later.
One love. Yeah, man. Out.